This is Land of Havilah, Hosea 12, verse 1. Ephraim feeds on wind and chases the east wind. He continually multiplies lies and desolation. They make a covenant with Assyria, and oil is carried into Egypt. Comment in verse 1, Ephraim feeds on the wind and chases the east wind. The wind is a metaphor for emptiness, nothingness, and worthlessness. The east wind comes from the desert and is dry and scorching. Taking the poetry out of it, it's that Ephraim spends his time and energy on that which doesn't profit, that which will be blown away, and that which will leave him withered and dried up. In verse 1, they make a covenant with Assyria. This is recorded in 2 Kings 15:19 and 17:4. The covenant or treaty they made with Assyria is that the king of Israel said to the king of Assyria, "We'll pay you money if you don't attack us." So they were being bullied is what the covenant amounted to. This wouldn't have been the case if Israel had turned to Yahweh, Deuteronomy 28:13 and Hosea 6:1. If only they would bow to Yahweh, they wouldn't have to bow to anyone else. And in verse 1, oil is carried to Egypt. That's olive oil as tribute, 2 Kings 17:4. So this is the same situation as it was with Assyria. They paid Egypt for security when Yahweh could have been their security. Now recalling the original Israelite, the founder of the nation, the man born as Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, verse 2. Yahweh also has a controversy with Judah and will punish Jacob according to his ways, according to his deeds he will repay him. In the womb he took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood he contended with God. Indeed, he struggled with the angel and prevailed. He wept and made supplication to him. He found him at Bethel, and there he spoke with us. Even Yahweh, the God of armies, Yahweh is his name of renown. Comment in verses 2 to 5, Yahweh reminds Israel and Judah how scandalous Jacob was. The point is that they're scandalous like he was. They take after Jacob, their forefather. In verse 2, Yahweh has a controversy with Judah and Jacob, Jacob being Jacob the man and Jacob the nation. He had some controversies with Jacob the man back in Genesis, and he has similar controversies with Jacob's descendants. He punished Jacob in Genesis according to Jacob's ways, and he'll punish Jacob's descendants according to their ways. He'll explain more about Jacob's crime and punishment and Israel's crime and punishment toward the end of the chapter. During Jacob's birthing, as mentioned in verse 3, he took his twin by the heel. That's where Jacob got his name. His name means supplanter. In verse 3, his other name was Israel. Israel means wrestler with God or contender with God. He got that name by wrestling with the angel of the Lord all night in Genesis 32. He walked away wounded and limping. The wrestling match was prophetic. It was an indication that Israel would contend with God throughout their history. Surrendering to God should have been the thing and agreeing with him quickly, but instead Israel continually wrestles with him. In the wrestling match, Jacob refused to let go until God blessed him, but God would have blessed him anyway. His stubbornness only got him wounded. And so it was with Israel in Hosea's time, and so it is with Israel today. Israel's continually wounded and continually wrestling with God and not giving in, not receiving Jesus as Messiah. But in the end, Israel will receive him and be blessed. In verse 4, indeed, he struggled with the angel and prevailed. Jacob prevailed in the sense that he never gave in and secured a blessing from Yahweh. Then in verse 7, Jacob found Yahweh at Bethel. Jacob had his first eye-opening encounter with God in Bethel in the dream of angels going up and down a ladder or staircase. The angels were going from heaven to earth and back, and God was at the top directing all that angelic activity. When Jacob woke up, he felt an overwhelming sense of God's presence, knew God was real, and promised to serve him if he would be with him. In verse 8, the name of that God was Yahweh, Yahweh the God of armies. The armies are armies of angels and armies of men. Yahweh is his name of renown. Therefore, what should Israel and all the rest of us do? Verse 6. Therefore, turn to your God, keep kindness and justice, and wait continually for your God. Comment in verse 6, the rules of life are not complicated. Turn to God, do the right thing, and wait continually for him. We wait for God to prove we didn't do the right thing for nothing. There will be a reward for doing the right thing if we wait on God to prove the right thing was also the smart thing. In verse 6, we wait continually. There's always something that's less than optimal in our lives that we're waiting on God to fix. Yahweh's counsel to Israel at this time is just like always, turn to God, keep kindness and justice, and wait continually for your God. But as it is, verse 7, a merchant has dishonest scales in his hand. He loves to defraud. Ephraim said, surely I have become rich. I have found myself wealth. In all my wealth, they won't find in me any iniquity that is sin. Comment in verses 7 and 8, Ephraim isn't turning to God. They use dishonest scales, trust in their wealth, and assume that their wealth is a sign of God's favor. He says, in all my wealth, they won't find in me any iniquity that is sin. Verse 9. But I am Yahweh your God from the land of Egypt. I will yet again make you dwell in tents, as in the days of the solemn feast. Comment in verse 9, the solemn feast is the yearly Feast of Booths. It's a commemoration of the Exodus. God will again make Israel dwell in tents. In the past, he disciplined Israel by subjecting them to the hardships of the desert, and he'll discipline them again. There'll be another desert experience, not a desert per se, but hardships as there were in the desert. Verse 10. I have also spoken to the prophets, and I have multiplied visions, and by the ministry of the prophets I have used parables. Comment in verse 10, God has spoken continually to Israel about repentance, sending them prophet after prophet, vision after vision, and parable after parable. After Israel fell, the summary of it in 2 Kings chapter 17 was that, quote, Yahweh testified to Israel by every prophet and seer, saying, turn from your evil ways. Notwithstanding, they wouldn't listen. End quote. Verse 11. If Gilead is wicked, surely they are worthless. In Gilgal they sacrifice bulls. Indeed, their altars are like heaps in the furrows of the field. Comment in verse 11, to be wicked is to be worthless. Quote, if Gilead is wicked, surely they are worthless. End quote. Wickedness is worthlessness. In verse 11, their altars are like heaps in the furrows of the field. That would be heaps of stones. When they plow, they turn up stones and stack the stones in heaps. Their altars are as numerous as the stones stacked up in the fields. It's altars on tops of altars in Israel. Now back to the man Jacob, verse 12. Jacob fled into the country of Aram, and Israel served to get a wife, and for a wife he tended flocks and herds. Comment in verse 12, Jacob fled to Aram. He was rich in the home of his father Isaac, Genesis 25:5 and 26:13-14. But because of Jacob's behavior, he had to forfeit all that. When he left home, he had nothing but the clothes on his back and a staff, Genesis 32:10. He was reduced to servitude to get a wife. When his father could have bought him many wives, he was reduced to tending flocks and herds in verse 12 and in Genesis 31:40, whereas his father had a great household of servants who tended the flocks and herds, Genesis 26:14. The nation Israel will lose everything just like their father Jacob because of their scandalous and contentious ways. Verse 13. By a prophet Yahweh brought Israel up out of Egypt, and by a prophet he was preserved. Comment, Moses the prophet brought Israel out of Egypt and preserved them. Since God is always the same and never gives up on Israel, there is the implication here that a prophet will deliver Israel again. Jesus is the new Moses that will deliver Israel again. Verse 14. Ephraim has bitterly provoked anger, therefore his blood will be left on him, and his Lord will repay his contempt. Comment, for the immediate future, Ephraim will pay the price, like their forefather Jacob paid the price. Hosea 13 is next.